All right, we are live.
All right, welcome to the Critical Christian Podcast. We're your hosts, Dan.
And Justin, we ask critical questions about the Bible and provide questionable answers.
Yes, very questionable.
Although I would say sometimes our answers are pretty good because...
Nope, never.
Oh, that's poppycock?
Okay.
I think we dig a little bit deeper than the average Bible study.
Uh-huh.
We're asking questions and providing solutions that no one's talking about, like magic berries being taken in the wind
Well, I mean...
to turn the Nile River red.
Hey,
Although that's your theory, not mine.
it's a good one, though.
That's a terrible one.
It's a good one. All right.
But it's new at least. It's novel.
Okay.
So we are in Exodus 14 this week.
We are.
Which unsurprisingly comes after Exodus 13.
All
That was funny, right?
right.
Good thing we haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah.
Let's see now. In Exodus 14, we've got the Red Sea crossing, which means just prior, they literally just left Egypt, and God made sure to give them instructions for the Passover and to ensure that they never, ever had leaven during the Passover.
That's right.
If there's one thing you need to know from Exodus so far, other than God wants to, magnify his name by killing babies,
Mm-hmm.
it's that you never have leaven during the Passover. Absolutely, under no circumstances. You will be cut off from all of the congregation. So,
Not good.
yeah. God, he's got a yeast allergy.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be careful there.
Yeah.
You don't want to aggravate that. Now, in 14,
Yeah.
everyone knows chapter 14. I don't think we're going to be reading anything
Okay.
in chapter 14 that you haven't already seen in the Ten Commandments movie.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, there's some fun stuff in here.
Right. There's some... I wrote a lot. I wrote like a book.
Well, with that then,
Yes.
let's have it. How about you open up with the first verse?
All right.
And give us your notes.
Yes. All right. Then the Lord said to Moses.
A whole
That was it.
one line for verse 1's really really starting out strong.
So where do we think he spoke to Moses exactly? I know there was a mountain thing for the Ten Commandments, but I don't know. Where has been God? I talk good. Where has God been talking?
Talk so good?
No. Where has God been talking to Moses until now? I mean, does God just leave flaming bushes wherever he and Moses talk? How come they make so many shrines to God in Genesis? Like wherever or whenever they spoke to God. And here, well, I haven't heard of any shrines.
Right.
And I don't know. Presumably Moses worshipped other gods before God spoke to him, right?
Yeah, it's not really until we get to the Joseph narrative that there's like this theme that God is with anybody. It's always that God is visiting somebody in a particular time and location, like at Bethel or when he wrestles with the angel. It's not until we get to Joseph that we hear things like, he was blessed because God was with him. And then we get to Moses, and it's even more magnified.
Mm-hmm.
God is just continually talking to Moses. How is he talking to Moses? We're not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
We're not really told. But it's clear that somehow Moses has a special relationship with Yahweh,
Right.
that nobody else in the Bible so far has exhibited.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It does make you wonder, why in the world did God see fit to have this type of a relationship with Moses, but not with anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got an error message. What's the error message say here?
Yeah.
The error YouTube is not what? Receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. We don't really get that.
Oh.
It'd be all right.
Okay. We're not giving them enough video? This is the maximum amount of video.
I have no idea why. We can't send them more video. This warning message means absolutely nothing to me.
All right.
All right, let's just keep reading. All right, so verse 1, the question is, what's the deal? Right?
What's the deal?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we know what the deal is. God just decided that he is going to have a special and unique relationship with Moses that is unlike anyone else to this time. And even Abraham didn't really have this much of a connection with God, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So Moses, as far as we can tell, is just pretty damn unique
Right.
for now. I mean, obviously there would be prophets later, which brings up a good point. Is Moses technically the first prophet we've come up on yet?
Prophet?
An actual prophet, because he's described in Deuteronomy 18 as being a prophet.
Now, what do you define a prophet as?
Well, see, that's where it gets fuzzy, because a prophet is kind of like anyone that the Lord delivers messages to. But it's weird because a prophet typically was like, it's a calling or a job of some nature. Like, that doesn't mean that somebody who wasn't typically a prophet couldn't prophesy. But typically when someone said that I am a prophet,
Right.
they're suggesting that God speaks through them, not just once. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay. Somebody who God speaks through.
That's what I'm guessing here. I think Moses, as far as we can tell, based on the definitions we have, it kind of feels like Moses is our very first actual prophet. He did speak to Joseph. We know that. You know, he interpreted the dreams. He gave him dreams.
Mm-hmm.
We might call that prophetic. It certainly is.
Mm-hmm.
But was Joseph himself considered a prophet? Hard to tell. It's iffy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Moses for sure is a prophet.
You know,
So-
whenever I think of a prophet, I just think of prophecies, and I think, well, they have to tell the future. But I guess a lot of them didn't do that. They just said, here's what God says.
Sometimes, yeah.
So I feel like they should have a different name for them then. You know, if they're just telling the present, it's not.
Well, prophecy doesn't have to always be about the future. Sometimes it could be about something happening imminently that nobody knows but God. You know what I mean? Like, if you're driving your car to work and God appears to you and said, actually, you're not driving your car to work because the building has been hit by a terrorist and it's no longer there.
Mm.
Well, that's not information you already had. That's new information. That would still be considered prophecy, even though it's in the real time. You know what I mean?
So prophecy is just getting new information from God?
Yeah, in the most generic sense, prophecy is to receive information from God. Information that obviously you wouldn't otherwise know.
Now, is this any God?
Well, yeah, I mean, any God, theoretically, as long as the God is real, you know.
Well, or somebody thinks the God is real.
Well,
right?
if it's not real, then it's not really prophecy. It's just hallucination.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know that.
Obviously,
Other people wouldn't know that.
Obviously, nobody would know.
Right.
But we're talking about what prophecy actually is.
Yeah.
For prophecy to be prophecy, it has to come from something that's real.
Yes. Right.
Exactly. So anyways, maybe the fact that Moses is the first technically true prophet,
Mm-hmm.
does that account perhaps why God is continually speaking to him?
I'm sorry. I'm just not sure how he differs from Abraham
What do you mean?
in propheticness and propheticness. Didn't God speak to Abraham?
Yeah.
And God speaking to Moses.
Yeah.
So Abraham would have been the first prophet.
No, the first person in the Bible to be described as a prophet.
Oh, is that? Oh,
Moses is the first person in the Bible that says that they are a prophet.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I disagree.
Oh. Fair enough. All right, let's read verse 2.
Okay. Tell the Israelites to turn back and camp in front of Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal-zephon. You shall camp opposite it by the sea.
Really, you nailed that one, eh?
I think so. So I have no idea where these places are, how to pronounce them, but it's always nice when the Bible mentions real locations. However, I have a feeling you're going to tell me that these places were not called these names during Moses' time and are proof of a later author.
Well, we don't really know what they would have been called, but we kind of get an idea of where they were believed to exist. So we can show that. I've got it on the screen. So as far as I can tell, the typical consensus as to where these places were was likely on the Sinai Peninsula, which is showing on the screen right now. There's a tower in the tip says the Migdol Tower.
Yes.
Migdol is going to be mentioned later in this chapter. And we see the Gulf of Suez on the left and the Gulf of Aqaba on the right. Now, believe it or not, both of these gulfs, or both of the canals, are technically part of the Red Sea. That's what makes it difficult to determine. But it seems that if the later verses are to be believed in Exodus 14, so for example, it says in verse 9 that they were encamped by the sea by Pi Haharith, there we go, in front of Baal Savan. Baal Savan, there's actually two of them, which makes it very confusing. So Baal Savan, technically,
The common name, huh?
well, that's the problem. We'll explain that in a second. Okay.
All right.
So Baal Savan is supposed to be Baal of the North, or Lord of the North, or it could be referring to the deity named Baal. But Zaphon or Zaphon is the Semitic Hebrew word for north. And so typically Baal's mountain was in the north, actually up in Lebanon, not in the Sinai Peninsula. So at some point there must have been a Baal tradition that migrated south and decided that they would rename one of the mountains Baal Savon because that's where they live now. And you know how mythology works. It kind of changes with culture. But that being said, there's no way that the Baal Savon mountain over in Lebanon has anything to do with where they're camping. They literally just left Egypt.
Okay.
And since there's two Baal Savons, it's got to be this one.
Uh-huh.
So that being said, as far as we can tell, what they did was they left Egypt, and I'll put it on the map so we can see a little bit better. It seems to me that what they did, let me close this. How do I close this side? Is there a button for that? All right, so if they left Egypt, they went just around the edge of the Red Sea here in the Gulf of Suez. They just walked around it, and then they went down. And that's what we read in the Exodus. They went down the way of the sea. And then they went this direction and past Migdol, and then camped out here, the theoretical location of Pi Hahiroth. That's what I believe, and that's what most people believe is their current location. But it's debatable, and the reason why it's debatable is because if you just give me a second to grab that text real quick, there is a location that you can find named Pi Hahiroth on the Red Sea, but it's on the other Gulf. It's on the Gulf of Suez. So currently, this city in modern day is located here, which is really interesting because to get from Egypt to here is a really short journey. You can do that in one night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which theoretically would have been the Passover night.
Mm-hmm.
To get from where they were in Goshen all the way down along the sea and over to the Sinai Peninsula and over here, it's a much longer journey. In fact, let's do that route. Let's do directions. And we'll just say we'll go to that pin, and we're going to go from Cairo, Egypt, and we're going to do it on foot. Well, hell, even by car, it's 5 hours.
Yeah.
On foot, it's 5 days.
Oh, yeah.
If it's a direct shot.
Yep.
Okay, so if on foot it's a 5-day journey, then the story becomes difficult. Because when we go, for example, back to chapter 13, we'll add 13 in here. They're told about the consecration of the firstborn. Then it says that they're going to be let go. It says they set out from Succoth, and they camped at Ethim on the edge of the wilderness. But it doesn't actually say how long it took them to get there. It says God led the people the roundabout way of the wilderness bordering the Red Sea. So in order to kind of interpret how they got to where they're at, we need to add a number of days. We have to assume that they've been traveling now for at least 111 hours. So about 2 weeks. They've been traveling for about 2 weeks. But it feels like they just left. You know what I mean? Because the text doesn't really give us a timeline. It says the Lord went in front of them, a pillar of cloud by day, led them along the way in a pillar of cloud by night. But really, it's many days or multiple days and multiple nights. So if we conclude that they've been out there for about 2 weeks, then it's fair to say that their actual location is where this map is placing them, which is between Migdol and the Gulf of Aqaba.
And that's why the Pharaoh is trying to get him back, because he's had a couple weeks to see that Egypt goes to hell without them.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
That makes sense, right?
Yep. So that's why I think this location is better. It's a better idea than the location for the modern Pi Hairath. I think the modern location might just be historical naming, but it certainly isn't historical. So with that,
yeah,
that is, I think, where they're at.
Okay.
And that's going to become important because in the next couple of chapters of Exodus, in fact, the whole rest of the book, they're going to keep naming the places that they go by. And so it's helpful to keep track of them. At least it is for me.
Yeah, it makes it so this actually happened, you know?
Yeah, it makes it feel like it's a real thing.
Right, maybe it is then.
Maybe it is, I don't know.
Yeah. Crazy question, all right? Is there a place in the Bible that was not named anything, but then when the Bible was written, it was named something in the future, but then in the even further future, it was named something else? Because if so, then you have to ask why Moses didn't choose that name instead.
What do you mean?
Does that make sense?
Nope.
Yeah. Well, you know, say there was a place called the Mountain, and then the people writing this 100 years later were like, oh no, that's called Mount Sinai.
Right.
So they wrote it, and then we're like, hey, wait a minute. Moses shouldn't know that. But what if in present day it's called like, not present day, but 200 years after that it's called Mount Sinai? I don't know. You get what I'm saying?
I think you're trying to refer to whether or not the Bible contains anachronisms.
Oh, I think we know it does, but...
Right. So I guess what's the question then?
I don't even know.
Yeah, there are certainly occasions where the Bible says they traveled somewhere, but we know from history that they didn't call it that at the time they traveled there. They called it something, which is how we know. Like, for example, if it says they traveled to, Haran. Let's imagine for a second that we know for a fact that Paran didn't exist until the 8th century. Well, then we know whoever was writing the text was writing after the 8th century because the plot is in the 1500s, but Paran didn't exist in that happens quite a bit in the Bible.
It's just confusing. There are people that believe Moses literally wrote the first X number of books.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they reconcile that with.
It's not in the Bible. Bible doesn't say that. The New Testament calls them the
Here's
books
the thing.
of
Here's the
Moses.
thing. Say that their reasoning is because God gave him like divine knowledge of what it was going to be called. Okay, then that makes sense, except for one problem. Is there a place that Moses calls something as a name, but then later on it's called something else?
Well, we have no idea if Moses
that...
named anything because we don't have any text from his time period. Now, Moses theoretically exited in the middle of the 1400s, but we have absolutely no text from that time period. Our earliest text about Moses is from the 6th century, so 800 or 900 years later.
All right. I don't know.
So there's no way for us to know if Moses named anything. We have no way of knowing what he actually named it because all of our texts come hundreds of years after.
Yeah, but Jacob named a bunch of things, and we know that.
We don't know that.
It was in Genesis.
But Genesis was written 1,000 years after Jacob.
Right.
So we don't know what Jacob did. We know what a text 1,000 years later says he did.
Right. Well, that's the same with Moses then.
Right, yeah, we don't know what Moses did. We have a text that came 800 years later that tells us what happened.
Right.
And you either just have to believe it or not.
Yeah, let's go on. This makes no sense. All right.
All right. So what do you have for verse 2?
So, I don't know. So God knows full well that Pharaoh won't be fooled
Right.
very long.
Right.
And there still will be a showdown
Mm-hmm.
by the Red Sea. So why is he bothering with all these pointless theatrics? Is this another trust exercise for the Israelites?
I don't think so. The theatrics are there for God to glorify Himself. So, for example, He says in verse 4, "I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, so that I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh." So, I don't know if this is a trust exercise as much as God is just wanting to continually display how powerful He is. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Which is an interesting way of doing it, because he could have chose any way to do it, right? He could have said, I'm going to cause a mountain to sprout up right here, and then immediately cause a mountain to sprout up. Or he could have said, I'm going to teleport all the Israelites out of Egypt, without even pulling a sword.
Right.
That would have been a pretty good proof that he's powerful.
That would have been yeah.
But what he chose to do was to execute a bunch of Egyptians.
Right.
It seems unnecessary. But it certainly is powerful.
That's a funny one.
Oh, yeah, everyone take a shot for every time we get on a rabbit trail. I guarantee that there will be some tipsy people here tonight.
It's got to be non-alcoholic or you'll die.
What?
It has to be non-alcoholic or you'll die.
Why would you die for having alcohol?
Well, because we have so many tangents.
I don't know if you'll die. You just pass out.
I think you can drink too much.
You can't drink when you're passed out, though.
I bet people still die of it.
Very rarely. They usually die because they're like drunk driving. Very few people die from drinking too much alcohol. They get alcohol poisoning sometimes.
I don't believe that.
Pretty rare that they die from it.
I don't believe that.
I think. Have you ever done it?
No.
You're not even experienced. You don't even drink.
I haven't died from alcohol poisoning. That's right. Thank you.
Have you ever met someone who had?
That's not the point.
Do you know a single person that ever died from alcohol poisoning?
All right, let's move on.
All right, let's carry on.
I still disagree with you. All right.
All right, let's exit us from this conversation.
Yeah, I see what you did there. All right, you want to scroll up?
Yeah. Verse 3 and 4, I suppose, right?
Looks like it.
All right, let's 3 and 4. Let's have it.
Pharaoh will say of the Israelites, they are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness is closed in on them. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them.
Go ahead, sorry.
So that I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so.
Right.
So, even without the wandering, I think Pharaoh's heart could have been hardened. I mean, it reads like this. God had to let them wander so that God could harden Pharaoh's heart. Like if they hadn't been wandering, then for some reason God couldn't harden Pharaoh's heart. Like God needed a plausible reason, you know?
That's an interesting point. Okay. Had they really wandered though? I mean,
they were making it look like they were wandering.
Yeah,
that was the idea, right?
I get what you're saying, because the people are asking, whether or not they were brought out there to wander in the wilderness aimlessly. At this point, when they say wandering, if they mean that like they've literally just been going in circles, like they haven't actually had a destination yet, I think it might just make it. To me, I'm feeling that more or less that they're just out there, but they don't really have a destination yet. But it's not that they're not moving. I
mean, they've been moving for 2 weeks. They got to have some destination, and if they don't, then they're definitely wandering.
Right. But to your point, the question that you're asking is a good one.
If they weren't wandering, then the Pharaoh wouldn't say, "Hey, I don't think they know what they're doing." You know, what if they made a beeline right to where they're going? Pharaoh would be like, "Oh crap, they know what they're doing. Forget it." Right?
Yeah. So I think what you're suggesting is, what if they left and then they weren't wandering? Would God still be able to do the thing that he wanted to do? Is that basically what you're asking?
You know what? If they weren't wandering, maybe they could have gotten away from Pharaoh, right?
I mean, maybe. It's a good question. Okay, so we already know that what they had been doing was, I'm sorry, what God had been doing had been pulling the strings,
Mm.
kind of manipulating things to get what he wants. He's intervening in everybody's free will.
Yeah.
Um, so is he intervening in the free will of the Israelites to cause them to wander so that the Egyptians could catch up to them,
Yeah.
so that he could destroy all of them in the Red Sea?
Yes.
That certainly is within the characteristics of the God that we've witnessed so far,
Mm-hmm.
that he would utilize the Israelites. He would cause them, he would literally cause the Israelites
Mm-hmm.
to wander aimlessly for no other reason than the fact that he wanted to use it as an occasion so that he could collapse the sea in on the people. Yeah, he would do that.
I mean, it's possible they could have gotten away if they just went right to their destination.
That's a good point. Okay, so if God wanted them to get away unscathed, he could have provided a way to do that. Remember, God is all powerful. There's nothing that God cannot do. So if God wanted them to make a clean getaway,
Mm-hmm.
there would be nothing stopping him from doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So based on the logic that you provided, we have to conclude that God is delaying their exodus or slowing it down
Yeah.
specifically so that he can do this thing and show how awesome he is, which is, of course, why he says that he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart and Pharaoh's going to pursue him in order that he can gain glory for himself over Pharaoh, which is this the first time he's added the over Pharaoh to it?
No, I don't know.
Because he's talked about gaining glory for himself. He's talked about showing everybody that he is Yahweh. Is this the first time he literally says, I'm going to gain glory for myself over or against Pharaoh? He seems now to have a grudge against Pharaoh.
Oh, well. I mean, he did kill all the little babies.
Right.
So God did that too. But
Which seems to be payback for what Pharaoh did.
yeah, yeah.
God's got a little chip on his shoulder against Pharaoh, it
Just a
sounds
little
like.
bit, yeah. I hate to be the Pharaoh.
He's a little bit, I don't want to say he's jealous, but let's say he's got a little bit of...
Actually, you know what? The Pharaoh's the one person that doesn't seem to be suffering anything. Everybody around him is dying, you know?
That's the craziest thing about the whole story is Pharaoh technically is the bad guy.
Mhm.
Like, if there's a villain in the story, it has to be Pharaoh. And literally everybody is suffering but Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
If God was really just upset with Pharaoh, he could have said, you know what, Pharaoh? You get boils from your head to toe. You know what, Pharaoh? It's going to hail only in your palace.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be frogs coming up from the river only in your palace. Everyone else will have clean drinking water. You will have mud. So it's just one of those weird things that you're right. The Pharaoh is the villain here, but he's not the one getting punished.
Just like real life.
Right.
All right. Sweet.
All right. Are we on verse 5 now?
Yeah, how many verses are there?
Let's see. There's only 31 this week.
Oh, well, then we're doing great.
Basically a baby chapter.
Oh, well, then let's just keep talking about
the little children would have been done nearly already.
I mean, Pharaoh's firstborn was killed too, though, so I guess he suffered with that one.
True, but did he suffer as much as the firstborn that was killed?
I just took her.
Oh yeah, Denise put it in.
her
Denise always
comment.
insightful.
Yeah, I like to pretend that they were mine.
Yeah, but that'll get called out.
Who would call that out?
I just did.
Oh, right.
Called yourself out, actually.
I did. That's because I'm an honest guy.
Yeah, I think you actually are pretty honest. This is now another rabbit trail. You're making Denise drunk already. Let's read verse 5.
All right. When it was reported to the king of Egypt that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart about the people. What in the world have we done? They said. We have released Israel from our service. So,
Regerts.
What?
Said regerts.
Regrets.
Not happy about that.
It seems like this is like two narratives pushed together. Either Pharaoh saw them wandering aimlessly and took his chance to get them back, or someone reported to him.
Right.
So I wonder if we couldn't place verse 5 before verse 3.
Well, I think it's a matter of reading it closely, because in verse 3, I'll put it back on the screen. It says, Pharaoh will say of the Israelites, they are wandering as aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has closed in on them. So I think what he's saying, this is what he will say in the future. And then when we get to verse 5, he says, when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the minds of Pharaoh and his officials were changed. So I think I don't think it's an ordering of events issue.
So the Pharaoh may not have known that they were wandering mindlessly.
Not yet. Not until we get to verse 5,
But
6, and 7.
Still wanted to get them.
What doesn't say that?
Oh, it says right here, they said, what have we done letting Israel leave our service?
Yeah.
I just read that.
Verse 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Problem?
I have no idea.
I have no idea what the problem is now.
All right, maybe there isn't one. So
I don't see an issue. Verse 4, God says the Pharaoh will recognize that they're wandering aimlessly. In the future, he'll do this thing.
Okay.
And then in verse 5...
And that's God saying that.
Pharaoh does the thing, yeah.
Yeah, but in verse 5, he doesn't realize that, right?
Well, yeah, it does.
No, it
doesn't
just
say that he does, but obviously he does because he's going out to get him.
Well, I suppose so. But I thought the idea was that, he's like, oh, they're wandering around. They don't know what they're doing. Their guard is down. Let's get them now. That's why they were wandering, Otherwise, he would have been like, well, they know what they're doing. I guess I'll leave them alone. That makes sense.
If I had to make a wager, the thing that God is waiting for is that they would become trapped by the sea, right? Because it seems like he's already pre-planned it so that the sea would open up for the Israelites and close in on the Egyptians, which means all he needs to do is get them to the sea and then, make sure that the Egyptians realize it.
But not get them to the sea too quickly, right?
Not too quickly.
So that they don't make boats and cross over it or something.
Right.
Would that be something they could do?
Well, I don't think they could, but even if they could, I don't know if they needed to. Like, they have no indication that the Egyptians are chasing them.
Right.
As far as they know, they just left.
Right.
They don't know anyone's coming for them.
Yeah, but I mean, if they went up against the Red Sea, I mean, they'd have no choice, right? But to make boats.
Well, they can go around it.
Well, then why didn't they go around it in the first place?
Why do they need to go around it?
I don't know, because they wanted to get away from the Egyptians.
But they didn't know they needed to get away from the Egyptians.
Oh, they didn't know that?
No, they didn't know that.
They really assumed they were good to go finally?
Well, yeah. Remember what God said? I will predispose the Egyptians to be favorable to you.
Yeah.
And then he did. They were literally giving them cattle and gold and silver as they left. As far as they know, they got a king's exit.
Oh, okay.
So if the country that's enslaving you is now giving you their wealth,
I'd still be looking over my shoulder.
Maybe I get that. But I don't think. To me, the story doesn't read that way. But here's something interesting. Sorry, Denise, you got to take another shot. Here's something interesting. God said prior that he's going to predispose the Egyptians to being favorable to you, right? How many of the Egyptians do you think he was talking about? Just some of them?
Well, I presume all of them.
Okay.
Every single, why not?
If that's the case, it seems weird that now they're pursuing them. Did God undo the thing that he did?
Obviously. He probably just meant, for this time.
Just a temporary favorability?
Yeah, I mean, they can't really still favor them if they're trying to get them back, right? Unless they favor them so much,
Okay, so did God predispose them to be favorable towards the Israelites and then unpredispose them later?
That one's very likely.
If that's the case, God is really doing a number on these people's free will.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that's not unlike him.
No.
But
that's going to be an argument every book, I presume, right?
Yeah, every book's we're going to see this basically.
Yeah, we're like, do we have free will?
Right. Do we really?
Because that was kind of our deal, right? It's like humans' free will. That's what we got.
That's the whole argument for the most part is, well, we're guilty of everything because we have free will, except that God actually seems to be the one pulling all the strings.
Right. And angels have free will too.
Right,
all
exactly.
Right.
So let's go ahead. Are we on verse 6?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So he had...
Go Pharaoh?
So he had.
What are you reading?
What am I? What?
6, 7, 8.
So he had.
Wait, what are you reading?
So he had.
Oh, I was looking at yours.
Oh, don't.
yours is a different translation.
I know it is, and
Did
I
you
don't.
put the message in there?
No.
What do you put in there?
I did that one that has like 15 different letters on it. RSVNBT, something like that.
Gotcha.
The one that you told me to use.
Gotcha.
When you literally told me to use.
Yeah, that's what we're using.
That must not be.
Let me double check, make sure we got the right translation. I want to make sure the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition.
Yeah, that's the one I used.
It can't be the one you're using because it doesn't match.
Then which one am I using?
I have no idea what you used, but it certainly isn't the NRSV Updated Edition.
Must be you that's wrong.
All right, well, let's read, I guess, what's on the screen since that's what everyone's going to see.
All right.
Dini says, doesn't it say God hardened their hearts again to go after them? Yeah, in the very beginning, let's see what it says. The Lord said to Moses, tell Israelites to turn back and camp. Yep, Pharaoh will say, yep, okay. I will harden Pharaoh's heart and he will pursue them so that I will gain glory for myself. So here, it seems like he's only re-hardening Pharaoh's heart and not the other Egyptians. But now that I took 13 away, I'll add it back again and see at the very end of 13 if he mentioned the hardening of the heart. He doesn't. Okay, interesting. It certainly isn't unlike something he would do, though. God is not above hardening someone's heart just to, I mean, literally moments later unharden it. I mean, he's a master of puppets here.
Yeah. Puppet master.
Okay, 6, 7, and 8.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 elite chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the Israelites who were going out boldly. So, all right, this is going to take a while because I got a lot of notes on this, all right?
Well, to your last point.
Yes, my last point.
About one of your prior points about the Israelites. It says here that they're going out boldly.
Right.
They're not afraid of being chased.
Okay. That would, yeah.
Am I reading that correctly?
I guess so.
So they're not like looking back. They're triumphant.
Yeah, the chests are puffed up.
They really think they just did a thing.
Right, yeah.
Wait until they see the red crossing. That's...
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to hear what you had in your notes.
Maybe it should have been like going out naively.
Yeah, naively?
That's the right word.
With naivete?
Yeah, that's it. Naivete. All right. So let's do the math here, all right?
Right, math. I love math. Yep. Mm-hmm.
We know there were 2.5 million Israelites fleeing. So in response, Pharaoh took 600 chariots. No, wait.
I'm so glad you touched on this. Keep going.
All right. Actually, he took 600 select chariots and all the other chariots,
it's like
too.
The Green Beret Special Forces. Yeah.
So I don't know how many that is, but I still feel like you'd need more than that to round up all the Israelites. Apparently, according to the internet, a chariot could hold 3 soldiers. So that's 600 times 3 plus 3 times however many non-select chariots there were. And you said this was pre-horse days, and I doubt they're saddling up on a donkey.
Well, they had some horses, but at the time period of the Exodus, horses were still pretty new to Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know how many they had, but for sure the horses were probably pulling the chariots.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so you almost wonder why the Israelites didn't revolt earlier if there was such a small little army. You know what I mean?
It is interesting that we're not really told of the size of the army. 600 select chariots could be, I don't know, 5% of the overall chariots. I don't really know.
Yeah, why would he just send 5% of them, though?
But think about this. The Israelites, as far as we can tell, they don't have chariots or an army. They're probably not equipped for warfare, right? Mm-hmm. So let's imagine for a second that they've got a couple thousand chariots. And in those chariots, a lot of times you'd have archers and spearmen, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a lot of damage with a couple thousand chariots full of archers. In fact, that's how King Josiah died, was he was shot by an archer.
I don't know. 2.5 million people seems like a lot.
It's a lot. I agree. The numbers don't make sense to me because even if they have a couple thousand, that's nothing compared to 2.5 million.
Right?
They could bum rush the Egyptian army. Sure, they'd lose some numbers, right? But they could bum rush the Egyptian army and overtake them.
But you don't really see that because I think everybody wants to live.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's very hard to get everybody together and say, hey, let's just trample over them. Yes, some of you will die, but some of you won't. You know what I mean?
Well, they do just that later in the story. We'll see.
Okay, well, I didn't read that, so.
They're quite ready to go to war.
Okay.
Even in the book of Exodus. In fact, another 3 chapters we see it. They go to war with the Amalekites. So it's coming up real fast. I think chapter 17.
All right.
So, but that does bring up another good point that we're going to touch on. But I want to hear the rest of your notes before.
No, those are irrelevant.
Okay. So there's a really interesting word that is used, and we're gonna get there. So I'm not gonna bring it up now, but I promise we'll come back to it.
You mean today?
No, here in a couple of verses.
Oh, so yesterday.
Yeah, it'll be coming up obviously today. Okay, so I agree. The Egyptian military force that was sent out to get them seems inadequate. But again, these stories, they don't make a lot of sense numerically.
Well, I mean, you said that it was more likely that how many Israelites were there? Like 600,000 or something?
Yeah.
Was that it?
600,000 fighting men?
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so I guess we're assuming the children and women aren't going to be doing much. So, but I still think 600,000 is a lot more than I don't know. That's like 600 people for each chariot.
Right.
Just to take it on. I think they could have done that with half that. I bet 100 people could take a chariot down.
I'd say so. In fact, if you've got a chariot with 3 people in it, and let's imagine that you've got an archer, a spearman, and a bowman.
Mm-hmm.
I bet if you only had 25 Israelites, you can take them out.
Mm.
It wouldn't be pretty. It'd be a bloodbath.
Right.
But it can definitely be done, actually. It's got to be.
Mm.
All right, let's keep reading.
All right.
We are on verse 9.
I know. I want to see my notes.
Oh, you had more notes.
Well, for everything.
Gotcha. Okay.
Uh-huh. All right. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his chariot drivers and his army. They overtook them camped by the sea by Pi-hahiroth in front of Baal-zephon.
Right. And we already discussed that the location here up of Pi-hahiroth seems to be between the Migdol Tower
Mm-hmm.
and this mountain here, Baal-zephon, which means they were camped here for a period or somewhere at least in that region. So fair enough. And do we need to say anything about this?
No, I was going to say, hey, I thought they didn't have horses back then, but you just told me they did. So can't say much about that.
But it's interesting because the way that the text talks about horses, it makes it sound like they're ubiquitous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it took a little while for them to infiltrate.
I mean, Egypt was like the top dog, so maybe they did try to get all the horses. You know what I mean?
They could have, yeah. I mean, when you have this new, we'll call it a new technology, and you've got one of the wealthiest kingdoms,
right?
Yeah, you can import some horses. Yeah. Okay. They probably traded for them too. They probably traded because there was a big I don't want to call it a livestock trade, but some of the animals that were native to Egypt were prized as novelty animals. So like they would sell alligators all around the Mediterranean.
Okay.
Because it was like this was an animal that was all over Egypt, but like you couldn't get one in Rome.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know why you'd want one, but
well, it's novelty, right? Just like everyone who gets rich, they want like a white tiger, and
that's true.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like a really strange flex.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true.
But yeah, let's read 10 and 11.
Always a white tiger. Okay.
I want a saber-toothed tiger.
I don't think those exist anymore.
We can breed one back into existence.
Well, with enough money, you're probably
Right.
right.
Just need some money.
Or just glue. All right. Let's see. As Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites looked back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt?"
Yeah.
Man, they're not very faithful.
How quickly their faith
Right?
grumbles.
Right?
Here's the thing that's confusing about the grumbling in the desert. They saw all the plagues.
Mm-hmm.
If you witnessed all those plagues, and then the Egyptians, who are quite literally, enslaving you, although not literally, more like abusive labor, but then they're giving you all their treasure as you're leaving. It really seems weird to me that 2 weeks later, they're like, "What did you do? We're gonna die out here."
They were like, "I wish I was in Egypt making bricks without straw.
Right? Yeah.
That was so much better."
I'd much rather go collect some stubble and get whipped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, crazy.
Mm.
But you have to tell the story from a sensational viewpoint, right?
Mm.
Like it's gotta, if it bleeds, it leads. Or as they say in ministry, that will preach. The story's juicy enough, you can make it.
Oh, okay. So Bleeds It Leads is like a newspaper. Gotcha.
Let's do 12.
Let's do 12. Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone so that we can serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. So by this time, the group known as the Israelites had formed, and they knew about God, right?
Kind of seems that way.
I mean, I know they were in Egypt for 430 years, but I presume they still have their stories and history.
Yeah, you would think so. It's hard to tell because we don't know how long they were in Egypt before they kind of got
Enslaved.
right. Yeah. And we don't even know how long they were there for because it could have been 430, it could have been 400, it could have been 212.
Well, yeah, you made a good argument that it was a lot shorter, right?
Yeah, based on the ages of the patriarchs.
Yeah, 150, 200, something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know. Can you imagine 430 or even 200 years of only having stories to listen to and no actual miracles? At least that's how it reads to me. I ever wondered if the Israelites ever wondered why they were slaves, It's not like they have the Bible and can flip to the pages and go, "Oh yeah, it says here we sinned and we're going to be screwed for 430 years," I mean, did somebody, you know what I mean? How are they still saying being faithful?
It is kind of an illogical viewpoint. Like, so for example, let's imagine for a second that you're living in, I don't know, North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
You and, hundreds of thousands of your family members. You're in North Korea and they're oppressing you and you're in like a gulag situation and all you know about God, the God of your ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
is that he exists.
Right.
And that he led your forefather to North Korea.
Yeah.
And you're like, the whole time you're there, you're like, why would he lead us here? This is horseshit. This is not good.
Yeah.
So if I'm in that situation, I'm inclined to not believe in that deity.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's a nonsensical situation that a deity would lead us here and then leave us here to get taken over.
And they got a couple stories.
Right. It's just stories. No proof, no evidence. Not until Moses comes along.
Yeah, we already know that they were still sacrificing to God even before Moses came along, right?
It does seem that way.
'Cause they were all talking about that with the Pharaoh and stuff, and the Pharaoh didn't seem surprised, right?
Yeah, it does seem to
Unless
me.
they were sacrificing to the fake gods for then, or I don't know.
Well, it seems to me that according to the text of Exodus, that the people recognized the God of Moses as their God,
Mm-hmm.
right? Although that might not be true for everybody. It might be true for only some of them, right? Some of them might have converted to Egyptian worship.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might have maintained an ethnic worship from Canaan, because there are lots of Canaanites that were in Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and they theoretically had Canaanite background. So they might have had a little bit of diversity in their religious upbringing on account of the fact that God was missing for like hundreds of years. Remember when he says that I've heard the cry of my people, and I've remembered my promise to them.
Yeah,
He
right.
basically forgot them for like 200 plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dini says, if they were told, though, that they are God's chosen people and being enslaved was part of God's plan to make Israel great. Yeah, if they were told
If they were told.
Yeah, if they were told that, you can rationalize, well, we're here, because this is all part of God's plan, which, believe it or not, a lot of people will do. Gesundheit.
Thanks.
A lot of people will. So I don't know if you know much about people that are abused, but people that are in abusive situations will often rationalize how the abuse was their fault, because it allows them to have some mental or an emotional feeling of control. Like if I can manipulate certain variables, I can prevent myself from being abused again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those reactions. I always felt like the story of the Israelites was a little bit like this, where they're being beat up on by all these other people groups, and their rationalization is always, God is mad at us because we were bad people. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what the Bible says, right? So if that's what they're saying in Egypt, I mean, well, we're here now because God had to punish us.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we're here. Some of them probably would have accepted it.
Yeah. Sins of the father and all that.
Right. It's like the battered wife syndrome. Always making excuses for their husband.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
I shouldn't have done that. I knew it was going to make him mad. When, I mean, a normal person wouldn't have flew off the handle and beat their wife just because they're upset.
Right, yeah.
So it kind of feels, the whole Egyptian thing has a feel of Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. So, according to the computer, so maybe they were in Egypt for like 200 years.
Right.
Or maybe less. I mean, that still sucks.
Yeah, 200 years is a long time.
But I wonder if during those initial 200 years, whether the Israelites ever had interactions with God that were just not recorded. Because, I mean, so we're writing about Moses' deal. You know what I mean? But is it possible there were other things that, I mean,
yeah, it's possible.
God spoke to people, but it wasn't, a whole narrative, or maybe some miraculous things did happen just to keep them going.
It's possible. Ezekiel seems to be under the impression that they were enslaved in Egypt because they were lusting after the gods of the Egyptians.
Okay.
So that's how Ezekiel, but we talked about Ezekiel last week, not really knowing how to interpret child sacrifice properly.
Yeah.
So Ezekiel is the only person in the Bible that gives an explanation for why they were enslaved. And his explanation is basically that they were chasing after the Egyptian gods.
Okay.
If that's true, if they went into Egypt and then they did start committing adultery with the other deities and whatnot, fornicating with other gods, that's what the Bible says.
Adultery with other deities? It's a weird way to put it.
But their allegiance is supposed to be Yahweh.
Yeah, but it's still a weird way to put it.
That's why the God says it.
Still weird?
God says you went around whoring after other gods.
All right, fine.
Bible said it, not me.
All right.
Okay, so if they're in Egypt whoring around with other gods,
okay.
Bible says it. I'm just saying.
They say the word whoring?
Yep.
Oh.
So if they're in Egypt whoring around with other gods, right? Okay. Then I can see why God might say, you know what? We'll let them do their thing for a while. If that's the way you want to act,
Mm-hmm.
then you can have it. It's one of those types of situations. And then God finally, after they've been, the nation has become drunk and lost, God comes and says, "All right, I had enough now. Let's clean you up and get you out of here."
Yeah.
That's probably the way some of the other biblical authors might have seen it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Ezekiel is the only one with enough balls to write about it. He'll say anything. Ezekiel's crazy. Dude ate bread cooked over dung.
Kind of gross, right?
Pretty bad.
Do you think it just retains the flavor of dung, or does like the dung get inside of the bread?
I don't know, but it can't be good. It's not good. Yeah, Chet says Ezekiel loved using that language for idolatry. He does. Over and over again. He's got one of the most vivid portrayals of the nation of Israel committing idolatry. And we've read it before. I won't do it again. Where it says that Israel lusted over her paramours who were, had members like stallions or emissions like horses situation.
Is that Chet Cheddarson? Chet Cheddarson?
Cheddarson.
Man, Chet Cheddarson.
Hey, he's famous. He's world famous.
Yeah. I always thought that was a really manly name. Chet Cheddarson.
It is a good name.
Yeah. All right.
It's a strong name.
It is, right?
I feel like it needs a mustache, though. Chapter 16 of Ezekiel, or
probably Ezekiel,
or chapter. That's what I'm thinking. He's referring to Ezekiel 16. That's probably what he's. Ezekiel 16 is where he talks about them being an adulterous wife. Yeah, the adulterous wife. It's such a good chapter too. Later, I passed by, and when I looked at you, I saw that you were old enough for love. I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your naked body, and so on and so forth. And we can say that because we've been shadow banned for like a year for talking about rape. So since YouTube's no longer monitoring us, we can literally say anything we want to.
That's sad, but it feels true. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Ever since that video about Ham and his mother, we were just done.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm. That's when it happened.
I know. That's when it happened.
We were on the way up.
Yeah, we were booming, and then we had one video about rape, and now YouTube ignores us.
Yeah, except it was the video everybody saw.
I know, that was the best video.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's read on, shall we?
I guess.
We are now on verse
13 I had more notes.
And 14. Oh, you had more notes?
I don't know, but you scrolled past them.
All right, go ahead.
So the new unabridged Bible. I don't know what the NABRE is, okay, but it's some sort of a Bible translation, all right?
The New American Bible. I don't know what the NABRE is. The New American Bible Revised Edition. Gotta be honest, never read it.
Well, I was just looking up different translations, and it says, "Leave us alone that." And when writing out these questions, it underlines "alone that" because it wants to add a "so" in the middle.
In verse 12?
Yeah.
So
leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians.
Yeah, did we not tell you in Egypt that
it doesn't matter?
When we said, "Leave us alone that we may serve Egyptians,"
yeah,
far better for us.
Yeah, but my question is it would sound better with a "so" in the middle. Leave us alone so that, right? And I imagine the only reason it wasn't included was because the Greek language didn't have subordinating conjunctions. Is that correct? It just seems odd they wouldn't clean up the language when translating.
They do have pretty good conjunctions, actually.
I'm just saying, why did they leave it like that?
Leave it like what?
Leave us alone that we instead of so that.
Well,
I mean, even the computer underlines it and says there should be a "so" in here.
Why should there be a "so"?
It's just better sounding.
Better grammar?
Yeah.
Okay, let me read it in the NRSV. It says, is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians, for it would have been better. And you think it should say "so" in where?
I don't think you're reading the right translation, are you?
I don't know where you want the "so." I'm in 12. Yeah, I just read it.
Oh, forget it.
I don't know where you want to sow. Where do you want to sow?
Well, you're not reading the translation I was reading.
Well, I've got it on the screen.
Yeah,
Did we not tell you this in Egypt when we said, leave us alone?
So that we may serve the Egyptians.
Why?
That just sounds better. And the computer even agreed and underlined it and said, hey, I think you want the word so in here. So I was just curious why they would have left it out.
Because it's not in the text.
Oh, boy. All right, let's move on.
I'll tell you, I mean, it's just a bad English translation. Like, it's not a bad translation from Hebrew into English. It's just a bad English sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Bible translators aren't good at their own language.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let me see what it actually says. Yeah, in fact, we'll just do this. Go to Exodus 14. We're in 12. And we'll see real quick what it's actually saying, because it probably says like key, which means for, right? So it says, is not this word that which we were told to you in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve Egypt, for, which is your conjunction here, not really conjunction, but it's giving you some causation, for or because. Tov just means good. This is a dumb translation. It would have been better is not. Tov just means good. It is before, and it is applied, for it is good for us to serve Egypt than us dying in the wilderness. So he's saying it would be better for us to serve in Egypt than to die in the wilderness. So where should the so be? I guess I'm not following you.
I don't know, but Chet Cheddarson gets it, so it's fine.
Oh, the NASB says so. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But there's no serve or there's no so that anywhere in the text. It doesn't even use the word that in the text.
Yeah, all right. Let's move on.
All right, yeah, let's carry on. As I think maybe a useless.
Yeah, we'll cut it out. You know what I mean? That's fine.
Definitely, we'll edit it live.
Can we? No,
it's there forever. The whole internet will always see this forever now.
Yeah, all 29 people.
Your whole lineage, our entire posterity will be seeing this one day.
Oh, I don't have a lineage, so we're good.
That's true. Well, your cat might.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
she might have children. All right.
Right.
Which would actually be miraculous.
Because she's fixed.
Yes.
Well, miracles can happen.
It does.
There you go. 13 and 14.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. But Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still.
Oh, Denise says she gets it. Apparently, I'm the guy who doesn't get it.
Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate that. He's always making me feel stupid, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Well, because you're so much smarter than me. That's probably why.
Well, I don't know, but is that the case? But Chet is just suggesting here that the Vav conjunction is being translated in English as so that.
Yeah.
But that's not. The Vav conjunction isn't a so that. It's either an and or a but, or sometimes some other variants, but it doesn't have any sort of accusative properties to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The author is using some artistic license here to smooth out the language, as far as I can.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's read. What did we just read something?
We did.
And then we went back to the last thing.
We did.
Yeah. All right. So I already forgot what we just read.
All right. I'll just read it again.
Right.
But Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still.
Right.
And by that, Moses means they're all going to drown pretty soon.
That's how I took it, because I think there's two ways to take it. Either he's saying all the Egyptians you see before you will get wiped out, or he's saying that the Egyptians will no longer be against you.
Mm-hmm.
Like they won't be a problem anymore. But that can't be the case.
Well, so do you think God relayed his plans to Moses, or Moses just assumed that God would save them?
It's a good point. I think Moses assumed.
I mean, I wonder if the night before God was like, all right, Moses, Aaron, gather around. Now here's the sitch. That means situation.
I mean, he could. But like, I don't know, God does a lot of like giving you breadcrumbs as opposed to giving you the whole plan.
Yeah, that's for true, huh?
Like he wants you to just blindly follow him, whether or not you know what the plan is.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's in keeping with God so far.
Mm-hmm. Well, Moses had a lot of faith then, apparently. I mean, because it does look kind of. I mean, there's a Red Sea. There's a big army coming to kill us, and Moses is like, "Yeah, we're good."
But it makes you wonder, if Moses is a man of such faith, we would assume, well, why is that the case? If that's the case, then it can only be because of the miracles that he saw.
Yeah.
Right? But the other Israelites saw the miracles too.
Yeah.
So then why is it that they don't have faith and Moses does? Is Moses just unique? Is he special?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I'm sure it helps that he's having an actual conversation with God, right?
Fair enough. We're not really told that the Israelites are having audible conversations with God of the universe.
I guess I assumed they weren't.
I think that's my assumption as well.
I mean, pillars of light and all that stuff.
Pretty dope.
It is. I mean, there are a lot of moments throughout Exodus where you just have to go, why are you guys being so stupid? So, I don't know. All right.
God did speak out of the flames too, and at the top of the mountain. Well, they heard the voice of God.
Oh, really? Well,
we haven't got there yet.
No, we must not have.
Right. We didn't get that far.
Man, that must be a loud voice.
It'd be booming, you'd think.
Or maybe the mountain is tiny.
Oh.
Average-sized mountain.
I don't know what a tiny mountain would look like. Is that just a hill?
It is.
They arrived at Hill Sinai.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's read verse 16. You got a lot of notes just for one verse here.
Oh, well. Let's see. So I think we're at 15.
Yeah, we didn't read 15. Sorry.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward." I don't think Moses was doing any crying. It sounded like Moses was defending God.
No, I think he's talking to the Israelites. Moses said to the Israelites, "Why do you cry out to me?"
Then the Lord said to Moses to tell the Israelites.
Oh, you're right. That's a weird wording, right? It says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites.'" So God here must be speaking to Moses.
Sounds like Moses was like, "It's all good, guys. Let me talk to him." And he's like, "God, what are we doing here?"
Yeah, I agree. This sounds like they cut the part of the story out where Moses went back to God and like, "Hey, God,
yeah,
we're screwing the pooch again. They're turning against me."
Yeah,
right. And we've seen this before in the Exodus narrative, where they're and even in Genesis, where it says something and you're like, "Wait, this doesn't make sense unless there's a piece of the story missing."
Yeah,
and this has got to be one of them for sure.
I mean, it makes him sound a lot more faithful,
right?
Because it doesn't show the second guessing part.
That's a really good point, because what if Moses, is the original narrative read that Moses heard the people grumbling, and then Moses was like, "Hey God, what's the deal? Why?"
Yeah.
And then he went back and questioned God, and then later the scribe was like, should we really include the part where Moses questions God?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I can see them cutting that thing right out. Get the scissors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or whatever they cut things. flint and stone.
I guess. I don't know.
The same flint and stone that you had circumcised your kid with, probably.
That's right. We probably washed it first.
You can only have so many cutting devices in the house. So, I mean, basically, the flint and stone, as long as they purified it,
yeah,
between uses might be okay.
Okay.
I don't think it's naturally antibacterial or anything.
No, it doesn't seem like it would be. All right. Yeah, I should have made one out of brass or something.
Yeah, I'm sure they did, actually.
Because those are naturally antibacterial.
Isn't it weird, though, that when it talks about circumcision, it usually says that it was done with a flint as opposed to a steel?
Yeah.
Or opposed to a brass knife? Or don't you think they would have used a metal knife for that?
You would have thought, yeah, a lot sharper, right?
Yeah. I think they'd be
you're just like hacking away at it with the stone, you know?
Right.
Waiting for it to come off. So, yeah.
Just a tip.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's read on.
Better have good aim. All right. I might turn him into a girl. All right.
Eunuchs were not allowed in the congregation of the Lord. You got to remember that.
Is that right?
That's why you can only take the tip.
Is this a joke you're making?
No, it's right in right in Deuteronomy. Was it Deuteronomy 21?
Okay.
Deuteronomy 21 or 23. I always kind of forget. Must be 23. No one who has been emasculated by crushing or cutting may enter the assembly of the Lord. As well as, obviously, no one born of a forbidden marriage. Obvious.
Okay.
That's why you got to be careful just to get the tip. If you get too much, God, He's not gonna. You're not in.
Then you're exiled.
You're exiled. You're out. You're cut off.
Yeah.
Good there.
If you cut too much off, you're cut off.
That's right. Yeah. Gotta be careful there.
I don't even know. All right. Whatever.
Handle that flintstone cautiously. What I'm saying.
We'll get to Deuteronomy later.
If you heat it up, it'll cauterize as you're cutting.
Ew. That would. All right. We're done here.
Obviously, he's gonna bleed.
We're done here.
We got a bleeder.
We're done here.
All right.
Yeah, it would bleed a lot though, wouldn't it?
He's gonna bleed everywhere.
Yeah.
The blood's unreal.
All right.
That's why Moses is a bridegroom of blood. Remember that story?
I don't.
Earlier in Exodus, when God is seeking to execute Moses or Moses' son because he wasn't circumcised yet.
Oh, yeah, that was nuts.
That was nuts. No, it was rod. It was not the balls. It was wasn't the.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he got some of the nut in there too, but
yeah.
Anyways, it was a quick hack and slash job. I'm sure it wasn't,
Yeah.
If it was Moses though, and not the child. I mean, what would you do if you walked in the house and your wife just starts chasing you with a knife? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
How do you react to that? You're like, oh, but take my member, yeah. Put it in your hand with that knife. See what
Yeah,
I'm not gonna let her touch that thing.
She's pretty angry, right?
Yeah, you get like the Lorena Bobbitt treatment.
Yeah.
You don't know what she's up to.
But just calm down, please. Calm down.
Right.
Yeah.
The whole thing's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Let's read on. Are we on 16?
I believe so.
Okay.
But you lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the Israelites may go into the sea on dry ground. So if God is just now telling Moses to do the parting of the sea, it seems that maybe Moses was not privy to God's master plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So I know you said that there were no chariot wheels found down in the Red Sea.
Facts.
But would they not have disintegrated?
That's a good point. So if there were chariot wheels, we would expect two things. The metal that was used to assemble the chariots would be down there, but the wood would not. The wood would no longer be down there. But what typically happens in places where you have large coral formations is a coral will form on the individual parts, like it'll form on the chariot, and then as the chariot erodes, or dematerializes, you have these coral formations left over.
All right.
Kind of like how wood is petrified. So I've got some petrified wood here that used to be actual wood, but it's all stone. No wood here left. But it takes time for that to happen.
I don't think you can petrify metal.
No, just the wood. The metal part of the chariots would still be down there.
Well, and there would be coral around it.
Most likely, yeah.
Well, how have we cut into some of the corals?
There's like hardly any down there though.
Oh.
Like there's some coral formations, but none of them look like chariots.
Oh, so you wouldn't have to cut too many then. All right, but
the Red Sea's been pretty extensively explored.
Well, maybe. First, you said that.
I mean, even just recently, Ocean X went down there and mapped the floor of the sea.
Well, maybe. All right, listen. You said it was a different sea, so if that's the case, then maybe we should just dredge every sea near Egypt.
Why would we do that?
Yeah, just to see if we can get some proof about it.
I mean, listen, you got to convince the Arabs. They own the place.
Well, I mean, we'll put the water back.
Not our territory.
I'm just saying it would be a good idea.
I'm sure it'd be fun.
Do you think how other people have suggested that?
I'm sure. Obviously, you're not the first person to think.
You don't think?
Obviously not.
I mean, that's how we captured the Loch Ness Monster.
Sorry, what?
We dredged the Loch Ness.
Sorry, when did we capture the Loch Ness Monster?
What? I don't know. I'm just saying that's a fact that I remember.
You said that's how we captured the Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah, by dredging where it was living.
I'm sorry, you believe there was a Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah.
Where is it now?
I don't know. Probably in a museum.
Which museum?
Well, probably the big one that
This can't be real. Am I being punked right now?
What's that real cool museum? What's it called? You know, the one that has all the cool stuff in it? Help me out here. Are you saying you know what it is? You know what it is?
Ripley's Believe It or Not? 'Cause that's where I would see a Loch Ness Monster, because I wouldn't expect to see it in like a Museum of Natural History or the Smithsonian.
The Smithsonian. It's in
no
the
Loch
Smithsonian.
Ness Monster in the Smithsonian.
Oh, it's in the British Museum.
It is. There is not a Loch Ness Monster in the British Museum.
But
Chet, I will cut you.
You should look at it sometime, though. All right.
All right, well, let's look at it. What is that? Loch Ness Monster, British Museum. It's a dinosaur. You don't even believe in dinosaurs. Not the Loch Ness Monster. It's a dinosaur skeleton. All right. Ridiculous. Come on, let's go. Oh, this is the blog. We don't. Where's their website? British Heritage, maybe? How does the British Museum not have the first website that pops up when I type in British Museum?
Don't they? Isn't that the first one there?
Oh, sorry. It looked like the archive.org symbol.
Mm.
You ever see the archive.org symbol?
Sure.
Looks just like that.
Okay.
All right. Denise says it's in the Louvre.
The
All right.
Louvre.
British Museum, also known as the Loch Ness Monster. Blah, blah, biography, view more. I don't see an exhibit. Let me check the Louvre. I don't think it's there either. I don't think anyone is displaying anything that is the Loch Ness Monster.
I'll find it for next week.
All right, I believe that you'll find something.
Okay, I'll find something.
All right. What are we reading next?
You have little faith, huh?
I do not have faith that the Loch Ness Monster is on display anywhere.
All right.
How do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster, but you don't believe in dinosaurs?
Well, they're not the same thing, are they?
They literally are.
Now, the Loch Ness Monster is an ancient reptile. Dinosaurs are ancient what? I don't know what they were. It's easier to believe in one thing than to believe in thousands of something.
How did we get a Loch Ness Monster if it wasn't preceded by thousands of others?
It was probably just originally like a crocodile or something.
It just had some
Oh, yeah. All right. Then I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And so I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots, and his chariot drivers. So these are two sentences that kind of repeat the same thing. That's all I have to say about that. Yep. Because apparently, there you go. Yeah, see, look. 17 and 18, you know?
You clearly didn't copy from the NRSV. I have no clue what you copied from.
What?
Let's just copy and paste your text into the browser and see what comes up.
All right.
I want to know what translation you...
Okay, all right.
I think I copied too much. Hold on. Copy there. You used the New American Bible.
Okay, is that all right?
Not even close.
Why not? What's wrong with it?
Nothing's wrong with it. It's just worded very differently. Okay. So let's keep reading then.
All right.
All right. We just read 17 and 18.
All right. Can you scroll up?
Right.
On both of them.
On what?
Well, both of them. I got to read it and I got to see my notes.
What? On 17 and 18?
Well, I thought we were doing 19.
Well, we didn't talk about 17 and 18 yet.
Oh,
we read it and then we didn't do anything.
Oh, what's there to say?
Well, not much that we haven't already said. God's going to harden the heart because he's the puppet master.
Yeah, like, hasn't God had enough glory?
Yeah, right?
How many more must die for him to be properly glorified?
It certainly makes you wonder why he wants so much of that damn glory.
Yeah.
Like, what's it doing for him?
Maybe he just wants to see him in heaven or something.
I guess, but like, why does God need glory?
Why? I don't know that one.
Like, is he emotionally deficient?
I don't know.
Like,
it's like...
Do you want people to worship you?
Me? Well, no, but I'm not worth worshiping.
Right, but neither do I. I don't want anyone to worship.
Right.
Isn't that weird to want people to worship you? That's like a trait of narcissism.
If you were worthy of being worshipped, you'd probably want people to worship you, right?
Why?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Have you ever met anyone that wanted to be worshipped that wasn't a narcissist?
I don't know. Clearly I haven't, but
it's just odd that he wants so much to be worshipped.
I'm sure somebody has a good reason for it.
Maybe
it's like that Santa Claus thing, you know, where if he doesn't get worshipped enough, he disappears or whatever, you know. I don't know.
Well, when all the kids stop believing, Santa he's impotent. He can't do anything.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's two or three different Santa shows about that. About the ye of little faith in Santa is causing Santa and Christmas to go away.
Maybe that's what happens to God. Maybe that's why he created humans, because he needed a source of glory.
I would buy that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe that, guys. I'm just joking. All right.
All right. Let's do 19.
The angel of God, who was going before the Israelite army, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and took its place behind them. So, since when does Israel have an army?
That's exactly what I wrote in my notes.
Oh, sweet. We did it.
This is the first time they've been referred to as an army, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
When did they become an army?
That's weird.
Isn't that odd? They literally just left.
Yeah.
They don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah, I doubt they brought weapons or anything. Where would they got them from?
There's no roll call.
What?
There's no roll call. Like no one took a census to see how many.
Yeah.
See what was going on there. It's kind of weird there though. That it would just be like all of a sudden we've got an army on our hands.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Is there a better word?
No.
Like, what was the original word?
Machne, which basically is an army or an encampment for the army.
Okay.
So I don't know. We could say something more generic, like the angel of the Lord was going before the Israelite encampment moved. maybe they're referring to them as an encampment, as less of an army in that particular sense. But here's the thing: is the angel of the Lord is often present when God is leading military excursions.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it says army here, and the fact that we see the angel of the Lord, would lead me to believe that they meant army, and then the angel of the Lord is not just leading them by day and by night by fire, but also as a military general of some nature.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not like it's impossible here that in 2 weeks they've assembled an army and they're ready to fight. I mean, anything's possible, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it is weird, as you say, that now all of a sudden Israel's an army, right? Especially when they're not aware that they're going to be fighting yet.
Right. Right.
They don't know they're about to fight. So why would they be forming an army?
So were there any Israelites in like the Egyptian army or anything like that?
Probably.
Because I know you said, there's a lot of intermingling, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they would have left with the other Israelites.
That's a fair point. If there were Hebrews that were part of the Egyptian military, certainly they would have brought probably their weapons and their skill set with them.
Assuming they would have left. I mean, I don't know who they would have been loyal to or not.
That's hard to say. That's a good point. There were probably Israelites that stayed in Egypt.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about. That some of them were like, I don't know about that. You can peace out. I'm going to stay. I don't know.
Yeah.
You think they got murdered?
The ones that stayed?
After all the Egyptians came back, and actually none of them came back. They all died in the Red Sea. When they didn't come back, and the Egyptians were like, "Do you see what those damn Israelites did to our army? They swallowed the whole army up. Let's kill the rest of these damn Hebrews."
I doubt that. Because, I mean, the ones that stayed probably were pretty integrated in society, right?
Fair enough, yeah. Makes sense.
And they don't look that different from the Egyptians, right?
Right.
Do they?
Not terribly.
Yeah, so...
They dress differently.
Yeah, but...
They had a different style, fashion, makeup.
Possible they didn't, because they integrated so well, and they're just like,
yeah,
whatever.
Even Joseph had Egyptian kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a whole double tribe of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh.
Yeah.
So 2 of the 12-ish tribes came from probably mixed lineage, or partially Egyptian. Yeah. Right. Anything else on this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, carry on.
So they're just throwing an angel in there?
All of a sudden, yeah.
I mean, there's no description, no proof, no nothing. They're all like, oh, yeah, it's an angel, no big deal. What, you've never seen one? We see them all the time.
Right.
Or was this God in angel form? Could this have been Jesus? Hold on. What if all these pre-Jesus being born sightings were Jesus? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is the Christian interpretation from the early church. They would say that every time you saw the angel of the Lord, that it actually was Jesus, which to me I don't think holds up. That's like a post hoc rationalization.
Well, I mean, Jesus had to exist before he was born, right?
Theoretically, if he's a member of the Trinity.
Right, so what form did he exist in? You know what I mean?
Well, he would have had to existed in some sort of bodily form.
Yeah.
Because when he arose, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, he received a heavenly body. And before he was begotten, I assume he had a heavenly body.
Right. Yeah.
It would only make sense that he did.
Right.
But I don't think the Trinity is coherent with the Old Testament necessarily. I don't see a 3-in-1 God. I think the theory of divine emissary makes more sense. The angel of the Lord, where God puts his name and his authority on an angel. But it's also true that there's a lot of texts of the Old Testament. Well, some texts, at least we have evidence of, that in the earlier forms, it just said Yahweh rather than the angel of Yahweh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it seemed like people were adding the angel in there to act as a buffer between God and humanity because they were uncomfortable with this idea that God was interacting directly with human beings, especially to do war. But I mean, some of that's speculative. And he is right. Chet says this verse presupposes that the reader is already aware of Exodus 23:20, which is when God says, "I will put my name, I will put my name in the angel. You will follow him, but he will not forgive your sins." We'll just read it real quick. So God tells you in Exodus 23:20 that He's going to send the angel.
Probably should have told him before then, right?
Yeah, you would think. So it says, "I'm going to send an angel in front of you to guard you on the way, to bring you to the place that I have prepared." Which is kind of a weird announcement if the angel was already present here.
Right, yeah.
Right. But we've already seen from Exodus and Genesis that it's pretty common for some of the order of events to not always make sense.
Right.
But to your point, from the Christian worldview, it's perfectly coherent to think that the angel of the Lord is Yahweh. But I would never come to that conclusion reading the Old Testament on its own. You would have to.
There are so many things wrong with Jesus just being a divine emissary or whatever, just so you know.
Right, but let's imagine for a second that Jesus is the angel of Yahweh.
Yeah.
Right? We've got some really weird things happening with the angel of Yahweh. Like the angel of Yahweh is constantly coming down and waging war against the enemies of Israel, which means Jesus is like the warrior side of God, which is weird because in the New Testament, Jesus is like almost nearly the opposite of that.
Right.
So it's weird that in the Old Testament he would be designated as the leader of God's armies, and then in the New Testament he's like turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
Right. But I get, like, if you are a New Testament believer, I would get why you would want to say, well, if the angel of the Lord is actually God, it is God, then it must be Jesus. But I don't think that's coherent because God could manifest as a human being if he wanted to. Like, there's nothing stopping him from doing it. He could manifest as a rock if he wanted to.
Right. He doesn't have to manifest as anything, though, if he's already everywhere.
Right. But he can't be everywhere.
Well, he is. All right.
But because in Deuteronomy chapter 23 or 24, I'll just show you real quick what I'm talking about. He's certainly not everywhere. I think that's something that gets put on him later. Might be 23. Laws concerning miscellaneous laws. Yep. Yeah, it must be chapter 23. There's a really fun law that we find in Deuteronomy 23 that kind of gives you an idea that God's not omnipresent.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Verse 12. You shall have a designated area outside of the camp to which you shall go. With your tools, you shall have a trowel. When you relieve yourself outside, you shall dig a hole with it and then cover up your excrement, because the Lord your God travels along with your camp to save you and to hand over your enemies to you. Therefore, your camp must be holy, so that he may not see anything indecent among you and turn away from you. So if God is like, listen, I don't want to be around your fecal matter, that would be impossible if he was omnipresent.
All right. But you have to remember, was this a law given down from God or one they just decided on?
All the laws are from God.
Or it was with this wording?
Yeah.
Or did they add that to the end because they're like, well, that must be the only reason God would want that?
No, Moses is giving the law.
How did they use the restroom before this? Because why is there a law for it?
Well, sometimes you would just go outside, and sometimes you would bury it, sometimes you wouldn't. God wanted to make sure you buried it.
Yeah, and you know why that would be?
Because he doesn't want to come in contact with it.
No, because it's just more sanitary.
Yeah, and God doesn't want to be in a camp that's unsanitary. That's why
Well,
it says,
or maybe
because the Lord your God travels along with your camp. If God is traveling along with them, then he's obviously not omnipresent because he wouldn't have to travel.
I think it's just you know, maybe it's just a way to get them to be sanitary.
Well, I'm saying that
know?
just definitionally speaking,
Yeah.
an omnipresent being doesn't travel.
Yeah, but it's just flowery language here. Obviously, God isn't traveling with them.
So the words don't mean what the word.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That's the answer you want to go with? The words don't have meanings?
They mean what I think they mean. Okay.
Fair enough. All right, what were we reading next? I think we're reading verse 20.
20, that looks right. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just throw your phone down. I say you already dropped it 5 times today. It's okay. Yeah. That phone is obviously protected by the angel of Yahweh. You drop it 100 times a week. It's a miracle that it hasn't exploded or caught on fire.
Those are both true. All right, 19. The angel of God who was going before the Israelite army moved. Did we already do 19? We did.
We did 19,
let's go with 20 then.
Mm-hmm.
It came between the army of Egypt and the army of Israel. Huh? Another army thing.
Right, I know, right?
Yeah. And so the cloud was there with the darkness, and it lit up the night.
Yeah.
One did not come near the other all night.
Right.
So the angel was a cloud. The angel controlled the cloud. So how did a cloud illuminate the night exactly? What happened to the pillar of flame?
Yep.
If God could have just put a cloud between the Egyptian army and the Israelites and it magically stopped them from attacking, was drowning them all really necessary?
Yeah, so I had all the same questions you did. Clouds don't light up the night. Obviously, there's a typo or there's an error somewhere in transmission or somebody got something wrong. They screwed the pooch on this one. It should say that the fire lit up tonight.
Yeah. Is there another word similar to cloud that means fire?
Oh.
Okay, because sometimes that's the case, right? And
yeah.
You say maybe it was just a typo.
There are cases where words are so similar that they get typoed when they're copied.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be the case here. So let's see what the word we have here for cloud is anon, which is nothing like the word for fire, which would be something akin to like eights. Let's see what they actually used for fire.
Maybe it's similar.
I don't think it is actually, but
maybe
it's worth looking. Go. Then let's run down to chapter 13. So we'll do Exodus 13:21. And the word that we have for fire here is ash. So it's a little bit different from anon. I don't think there's a typo there.
Seems a lot different.
Yeah. I think somebody just they just wrote something down wrong. It's most likely like I didn't check all the other manuscripts to see if this was corrected in another manuscript. It probably is. There probably is a manuscript out there that corrected this.
That would be interesting to find that.
But it is weird. Actually, hold on. My critical edition of the Hebrew Bible and see if it's got a manuscript difference there. But I'm listening to your notes.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Sure, why not? Yeah. No.
No, that was it.
Yeah.
Articulated as always.
Well, I used a different translation, and so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, no, that's not what yours says. So mine doesn't make any sense. So I'm just not going to bother.
Oh, you had some detailed notes based on the in-depth, wording of the English.
Yeah.
That's where you got to be careful. You can really get caught off guard by diving too deep into what the English Bible says, but you got to be careful there because there's no word for word translation.
Mm-hmm.
Not really a thing. So in verse 20, I don't actually show anything in here that would be like a meaningful textual variant.
Mm-hmm.
There are some textual variants, but it's not with the word that we're looking for cloud. The textual variant is on the next word, talking about the dark. There are some manuscripts that say the night instead of the dark. So not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so that being said, I agree. It's goofy. We've got military language being included here now that the angel's here. And somebody screwed the pooch on the cloud. But it looks like God's like getting ready to fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like God's got the fisticuffs ready. What do you think? What do you think the Egyptian army was thinking when they're like, let's pull up on these Hebrews?
You know, it certainly makes sense for it to be a pillar of flame, because I imagine the Egyptians would say, "Hey, I can't go through a pillar of flame."
Exactly. Yeah. If a pillar of cloud or smoke formed between the Egyptians and the Hebrews, they'd be like, "Well, I don't give a damn about the cloud on account of I can just go through it." But like if it's a big old flame, then now we got a different story. Now they're like, maybe the horses don't want to ride through the flame.
Yeah.
They get startled at least.
Yeah. I think everybody would be startled.
Feet might become tender trying to walk through the hot sand.
Yes. And everybody would die as
Right.
well. All right.
Although I mean that was about to happen anyways, but
they didn't know that.
No, not yet. We're about to find out though. Verse 20 and 21.
Sure.
I'm sorry, 21 and 22.
Uh-huh.
Right.
All right. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. The Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Bam.
Yeah, I mean, you sounded like you're really onto something there.
I got a huge bunch of notes on this.
Let's have it.
All right. So what's interesting is this particular miracle is always depicted as, usually pretty instantaneous.
Sure.
And yet here we see that it actually took all night.
All right. It says Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind. Yeah, the Israelites went into the sea on dry ground. The waters left. Yeah, you didn't get to the part where it said it took all night yet.
All night. 21.
Oh, I went right by it. Okay, the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry. Yeah, it's interesting, too, that you bring that up, because in the Charlton Heston film, which we know is the most biblically accurate film of all time, it is rather instantaneous. But given the fact that it's not, according to the text, it would make much more sense that it was a pillar of fire, not a pillar of cloud, between the armies.
Right, yeah.
Because, like, if there's just a pillar of cloud and the Egyptians are, like, watching to see what's going to happen, and they see the sea slowly moving away, they're like, about 12 more hours until it's actually dry. Let's just go kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be fire.
So another thing that's interesting is that for this particular miracle, God, or the author who wrote it, actually wrote how it was performed. You know?
Yeah, the east wind.
Right. I mean, how many miracles just happen?
Right.
But this one, they mention the strong east wind. This actually lends evidence to my idea that most of the miracles God performed were likely by using the existing laws of the universe. If God can part a sea with wind, why can't he send a trillion berries over the ocean to land in the Nile River?
I knew this was coming.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
The Nile River, or river, the part that flows through ancient Egypt contained about 2 billion cubic feet of water. All right?
We're never getting.
To turn 1 cubic foot of water into a substance people may mistake for blood, you would need to squeeze about, let's say, 4 trillion grams of berries.
Yep.
Now, if that sounds like a lot, you must remember that a single berry is about 4 grams on its own, which is to say that you probably need maybe a trillion berries, okay? Just to float the water in a way that convincingly looks like blood. So this number might sound like a lot, but since there are 2 trillion red berries on this planet right now, it isn't that hard to believe. And even in the ancient world, scroll please. Yeah. And even in the ancient world, there were at least, no, I can't read it. It was too high. Oh. There were at least 100 billion to 2 trillion red berries available. Less, sure, but no less believable. And this is assuming the river truly looked like blood instead of just looking like Kool-Aid, which would have used a lot of those berries. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Strong wind. All the berries in the world.
I mean, he used a strong wind here. Why wouldn't he have used it earlier too?
Well, wouldn't the winds have to come from every direction
to
get them to Egypt?
Well, who knows?
What happens when you have winds from all over the world all going in the one location?
Well, I don't know.
Probably like lots of tornadoes.
So, what's your point? That would be bad, I guess, right?
Anything about tornadoes in Egypt? And if they're moving fast enough to carry berries from continents away, it'd destroy the whole place.
Maybe it was just a lot of wind. Maybe it didn't have to be like a little wind that moved real fast. It's like a line squall. Yeah. Not a little wind. A little.
And then it just slowed down as it got to.
Yeah.
So God would be violating the laws of physics?
No. It would slow down like it normally slows down.
It doesn't just create tornadoes. They just clash into each other.
Anyhow, I think you're wrong. So there.
All right. Back on the magic berry thing again.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think it makes sense.
Sure.
It does.
I'm with you. Okay. All right. So point made.
Yes. All right.
There's a strong wind. See, I had a question about the wind, though.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid to even bring it up because I knew you were going to talk about the berries again.
Okay.
If the wind was strong enough to split the water, how did it knock over all the people?
Well, I mean, it took all night, so it probably wasn't that strong, right?
What was it doing?
What do you mean? It was just moving it back, moving the water around, you know?
How? It had to be strong to move a sea of water.
Well, no. A little wind can move a little water, right? And a lot of little winds move a lot of little waters.
It's a sea.
Right.
And you get a lot of strong wind.
Yeah. Or a lot of little wind. If you were to...
A lot of little wind is a lot of wind.
Right.
It's like saying, listen, I had 15 gallons of grape juice tonight, but I had it in small doses. You still had 15 gallons of grape juice.
Yeah, but the difference is, for your analogy, you know, if you drank like 50 gallons right away, you would die. But if you drink them like all throughout the night, like with a shot glass, you won't die. Yeah, I mean, you would, but you wouldn't die as fast.
You'd probably have like a diabetic coma or something.
My point is, whatever my point is, okay? I'm just saying, say you have a bathtub, okay? And say you put a fan next to the bathtub. What happens to the water? Some of it moves, right?
A tiny, tiny fraction of it.
Yeah, but what if you multiply that fan by a trillion or something?
Then the wind would combine and create a large wind.
Yeah, but what if only one fan is going at a time?
Well, then nothing would happen.
Well, no, a little water would move.
And only to be replaced by a different water.
Maybe. Maybe not, though.
Oh, for sure.
No.
Have you ever put a little fan on water?
There's probably fans on the other side.
You know how water works? Have you been in water yet?
I'm afraid of water.
You've never been in like Lake Erie and had a breeze come across?
Okay, but what if there was a breeze going in the opposite direction at the same time?
It wouldn't part Lake Erie.
It might.
You need like a hurricane type wind to move water.
I mean,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, you know what?
What I'm saying here is the type of water.
This lady gets it. She's a smart one.
You know what? This is pity. He's giving you pity reassurance.
No, I don't believe so.
I'm saying you need a lot of wind to move water.
Yeah, I'm saying there was a lot of wind. It just wasn't happening all at the same time.
But it doesn't matter if it was happening all at once. If it's not happening at once, then it's not going to do anything to the water.
Well, says you.
This is the fact of reality is.
Says you.
Does this hurt?
No.
What if I do it all night?
I mean, you probably rub some skin off eventually.
You think this will destroy your whole arm if I just do this all night?
I don't know, maybe.
Would it hurt more if I kicked you all night rather than doing this?
Yes.
What? Okay. Why?
Because there's more force?
Yeah, because there's more force. You need force to move water, not repetitive light touches.
Just let me think about this, and I'll get back to you next week, all right?
All right.
Yeah.
Just pray on it.
I'm going to ask the computer. We're going to talk.
Pray to ChatGTP.
Just wait, all right?
All right.
I'm not prepared to debate you on this. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying
See, it was concentrated in a path.
I know exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. If the wind was strong enough and concentrated in a path that it could part the sea, then would it not also hit the Israelites at the edge of the sea?
They were protected.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How did it occur? If we had this strong wind,
mm-hmm.
How did it occur that it parted the sea, but it didn't hurt the Israelites?
All right. Let's just put a pin in this, and I'll think about it for next week, all right?
All right, fair enough.
Okay.
And then you'll integrate it with your berry theory.
Yeah, why not?
It might hurt you, Justin, because he'd probably deck you after a while. I agree. If God had to tolerate me in the desert, he would deck me. Or the angel of the Lord, whoever it was. He might drop a rock on me or something. I don't know. I wouldn't tolerate meat.
All right. We're going to continue.
All right. Yeah. We got to read 23, 24, and 25.
All right. The Egyptians pursued and went into the sea after them, all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and chariot drivers. At the morning watch, the Lord, in the pillar of fire and cloud, looked down on the Egyptian army and threw the Egyptian army into a panic. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they turned with difficulty. The Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Yes. Yeah. So at no point did any of them think, "Hey, wait, where did the sea go?"
That would have been my first thought.
Like, no, something about it doesn't feel right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Having walls of water all around them.
I gotta be honest. If you're chasing a group of people that literally just sent all these plagues and then killed all the firstborn, and then the sea opens up for them, and you're gonna chase them in there? No way. There's no way. You have to believe that what's about to happen is the sea's gonna collapse in on you.
But I have more information for you.
Carry on.
All right. You made it funny.
Denise is about 10 shots in. We've had so many rabbit trails.
All right. So apparently, if indeed we are discussing the crossing of the Red Sea, all right, there is actually quite a varied difference in width distance across.
Yeah.
From between 13 miles to 220.
I know, right?
Since there's no way in hell they walked 220 miles across, we're going to go with the very conservative estimate of 13 miles.
I agree, yep.
So it says it would take the charioteers and the horseback soldiers 52 minutes to cross the 13 miles. And it would take the 2.5 million people 6.5 hours to cross.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Therefore, if they were crossing in the middle of the night, they would be able to get everybody across in time.
So?
Yes. So this is like one of those, the opposite of a myth busted. Myth plausible?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think the story here reads plausible.
Okay.
If this is happening at night, right around sundown, it's certainly possible that they spent the whole night crossing over. I assume that the fire prevented the Egyptians from going in after them right away. And they must have been prevented from following them until God wanted them to go after them. And Denise says that they were predisposed by God to follow them into the sea. That's a really good point. They didn't go in willingly or blindly or because they were stupid. God predisposed them.
That's sad.
So he can show his glory, remember?
Yeah.
It's all about the glory.
Yeah, but that means he really killed them.
Obviously, that was his goal from the beginning.
I know, but I don't like that.
How's he going to show his glory if he doesn't kill everybody?
Surely
that's the only way you could do it.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of bloodshed just to display your glory. I think teleporting the Israelites would have been a good show of glory. That would have been dope. Like one day they're there, then the next day they're in a whole separate location.
Yeah.
And then God could have like left all of them notes in their houses. The Egyptians are no longer, or the Israelites are no longer here. They've been teleported.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, pretty convincing.
Yeah. Yeah. Would make for a short Bible though.
Right. Now, verse 25 is interesting. In your translation, it says that they clogged the chariot wheels.
Yeah.
In my translation, it says they clogged the chariot wheels.
Uh-huh.
In almost every other translation, it says that the chariot wheels fell off.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of funny. There's some different manuscript evidence as to what actually happened, but most of the manuscripts seem to indicate that the wheels came off as opposed to got clogged. The Hebrew word is not easily translated here as to what it means. That's why some of the translations differ. But from like visualization perspective, what would make more sense? That the wheels got clogged, or that they fell off, or maybe what the author is saying here is that they got like bogged down in like the bottom of the sea because it was soft ground. It was probably a little bit marshy.
That actually makes the most sense. I don't think they just fell off.
Right.
That would be a miracle on top of a miracle.
Well, it says he clogged the chariot wheels, or God is doing something to the wheels.
I mean, maybe he isn't. Maybe just the fact that he created he took the water away, so God did in a way clog the wheels, But it really could have just been the soggy ground. I mean,
yeah,
I think that's the way to read it.
Fair enough, because the Hebrew word here is in the causative stem, meaning God caused the wheels to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So if it means that they become stuck, or you can see how that might get worded. And that's a pretty loose translation of the word that we have here, but I think it's doable. But no matter how we translate it to me, the funniest picture is if they just came off. Could you imagine the Egyptians just chasing after them with horses and whips?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the wheels coming off? Like, you're really clowning on them at that point.
I get it. But I think God was trying to use, the laws of the universe. And the laws say if you put wheels in, mud, they're going to become clogged. The end.
I mean, Denise has got a good point. Obviously, the wheels came off. That's why they were found at the bottom of the Red Sea.
Yeah.
He's joking. They weren't.
I know, but maybe they'll be found at a different sea because you wanted to tell me that the Red Sea wasn't the correct sea.
What I'm saying is it's possible it wasn't.
Yeah, we just need...
I don't know if that's a conversation that...
No, I'm just saying, just brings a big magnets.
Magnets?
Everywhere.
We could do some magnet fishing and allow that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the movie, the ground was perfectly dry. And that's because in the book, it says the Israelites went into the sea on dry ground. But I read dry ground as like an idiom. Not that the ground was perfectly dry, but saying that, the ground wasn't covered in water.
Mm-hmm.
This is like when the Genesis refers to the waters receding and dry ground appearing.
Yeah.
I take dry ground just to mean that it's not waterlogged ground.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just my reading of it. I could be wrong. It could be that Charleston Heston got it right, and the appropriate reading is that it was straight dry ground.
Mm-hmm.
If it was perfectly dry ground, then we would be forced to conclude that the wheels of the chariots were either clogged or taken off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's some options here.
I think they just probably sunk down into the mud.
Could be. We got lots of viable options.
Yes.
Right. What's our next verse?
26.
All right, 26. Got it.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and chariot drivers." I think this might be the first time that Moses actually kind of had a hand in the killings. Like, if Moses doesn't do as told, does that mean the Egyptians don't drown?
Actually, there's a good case for that.
Okay.
Because I want to say chapter 17, when they fight the Amalekites, either 17 or 19, I always forget. In fact, we'll just pull it up real quick because it's a wild passage. Go to Exodus 17, and it should be near the end of Exodus. Yeah, the Amalekite attack Israel. Okay. So Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Then a war ensues. It says, okay, Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some men for us to go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with my staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hand grew heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Okay. So in this narrative, when Moses stops holding up his staff during the fight, they start losing, right? So I would say that the same principle probably applies here. So when he's got the staff over the waters, like God is making him an active participant in what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
He can either obey, or there will be, negative repercussions for not obeying.
He'll be like, "All right, you're up, Aaron."
Yeah, Aaron, grab your magic rod. Let's go.
That's right. Yeah.
I think you're right. 27?
So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at dawn the sea returned to its normal depth. As the Egyptians fled before it, the Lord tossed the Egyptians into the sea. So it makes sense that they were all crossing at night, since it would have taken such a long time.
Yeah.
And it's possible the Egyptians couldn't see what they were doing since it was dark and since there was a cloud in the way or fire. I imagine by daybreak they could have all been almost across, and then maybe it would take a while for the winds to pick up and blow all the water back into the sea. This is why we need a more accurate version of the Ten Commandments. In fact, why not make it a 3-part? The Lord of the Rings, but for Exodus.
I'd watch.
Yeah.
What are the odds you think that the pillar of fire stopped standing between the two armies once the Israelites got across, and then went back and closed off the backside so that they couldn't escape once the Egyptians got in there? Think God like blocked them in to make sure, or do you think he just timed it up perfectly?
Can you be more specific?
Well, like if God wants to make sure that all of the Egyptians die, because that's what it says,
right.
All of them died, not one left. If that's the case, did he ensure it through good timing, or did he ensure it through making sure there's no escape route?
I have no idea what the difference is.
Well, if it's just good timing, we're just suggesting that all of the people are in the canal, and then the water in an instant just swallows them up.
Okay.
Right. Or did the water come down a little bit slower? If so, then some of them could have ran back. Did God prevent them from running back?
Well, I mean, the question would be how long it would take for all the water to flow back.
Well, even if it didn't, even if the walls were still up, what if some of them doubted and was like, maybe I'm going to turn back?
The Israelites?
No, the Egyptians.
Doubted what?
They're going to live.
Oh, well,
they're walking through.
I assume some of them probably did doubt, right?
That's what I'm saying. Was God there preventing them from leaving? They're going to their own death?
I mean, I think, as I said, it would take like, an hour to get across, and the things were getting all clogged. So, maybe another hour, So even if they wanted to go back, would they have really just stepped in and 5 minutes later said, you know what, I'm not doing this? I don't know.
Well, what I'm saying, I'll draw a picture. Okay.
Okay.
We had to do it. Okay. But what I'm suggesting is that if we've got this body of water that's parted, and this is God, the pillar of fire, right? And here's all of the Egyptian armies. Here's the water on the right and left. This is my artistic capability, guys. The sea. What I'm suggesting here is that maybe as the Egyptians came in between the walls of the water, that God prevented them from leaving lest they changed their mind.
Oh, with the pillar of flame?
Yeah. Did he block the entrance, or now the exit, so that none of them could get out to ensure that all of them died?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think maybe it took a while for them to decide not to do it, and by that time it was too late.
Could be.
The water had already come around them.
Could be. I only ask because here in just a little bit, it's going to say that not one of them got away.
Yeah.
Which I always found to be, well, if there's a couple thousand of them, seems reasonable that a couple of them would have been like, nah, I'm peacing out. I ain't doing this. I ain't going. I don't even like to swim.
Well, I mean, didn't it say somewhere that God was egging them on?
Not really.
Yes, it did.
No, Denise said that God predisposed them.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a joke. She wasn't.
No, I think that was in the Bible somewhere.
We just read it.
Yeah, well, then we know it was in there.
Okay, then where was it?
I don't know. It was in some previous verse we read.
Okay, of course.
No,
well, what verse was it?
I don't know. Denise, what verse was it?
I think she was joking.
I don't think so. I didn't laugh at it.
Okay.
All right. Whatever.
All I'm saying is, in order to ensure that all of them died, either God had to make sure none of them changed their mind, or he had to have just timed it perfectly.
I think what we have to know is how long it would take all that water to come back crashing down.
Well, I'm saying this could have even happened before the water came down.
I know, but I'm saying I don't think it would have. I don't think the pillar of flame had anything to do with it.
Well, I'm saying, though, it's likely that some of them would have changed their mind and said, I'm not going in that death trap.
Oh, so you think some of them didn't even bother to go in?
That's what I'm saying. I think some of them either didn't go in at all, or they went in and came out.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
There's a giant body of water that's been split. It's not normal. Some of them are going to have reservation.
I don't think they did.
Oh, Denise says she's not joking. Is guessing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I'm saying, okay.
Well, that might have been
if
it.
Lake Erie parted, right, into two different bodies of water, you wouldn't be scared to go in there?
I mean, the thing is, if you don't go in there, you're probably going to get, killed by your commanding officer or something?
You don't know that to be the case.
What?
You don't know that to be the case. If you think they're all going to die and you don't want to die, you're not really afraid of what your officer is going to do in the off chance that they survive it.
Listen, I don't know for certain, but I think somewhere in the previous passages it mentioned God kind of pushing them along.
He says that they will drive you out.
The Israelites?
The Egyptians will drive them out.
Well, there you go.
But he didn't say that I'm going to force them or predispose them to go into the water.
I know we don't have time to look up the entire chapter, but I think it was in there somewhere.
Good thing we're not doing 2 chapters. It's already 9 o'clock.
Yeah, we could do.
We've already spent 2.5 hours on one chapter.
It's actually been 2 hours.
This is why we can't get anything
You're
done.
just being silly. Oh wait, it's 2:10. Wow.
Poor Denise has already got alcohol poisoning from all the shots we made her do for these rabbit trails.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish it.
Let's do it.
What verse are we on?
We
just read 27?
29, right?
I think we needed to read 28, 29, and 30.
Okay. Maybe? Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the chariot drivers, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. But the Israelites walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore.
See what I'm saying? Well, how are the Egyptians dead on the seashore?
I don't know.
If they're all covered in water, some of them had to get out of the water, right?
I don't know. I mean,
or what if they just washed up from the waves?
Well, you know what? I think that's actually what happened, because I say it here. Because I said, I guess they may have washed up onto the shore.
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah. Because I was wondering how long it would take to reverse all the waves. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Again, they make it sound like it was instantaneous, like it all came crashing down immediately, but I doubt it would have been that quick.
Hard to say.
It may take a couple hours for the winds to part the sea for the crossing, but it would have taken as little as 30 minutes for the sea to become filled with enough water to drown the Egyptians. So
water moves pretty quick.
But again, say it takes 30 minutes for there to be enough water to come down to drown them, and say they're like in the middle. I mean, they might get close to the edge, but I don't know if they're no. And they had all that clogging of the wheels. So it's very possible that, even if I know you're saying some of them might have not even went in there, but I think they probably all went in there.
Well, according to the text, they had to have, because they all died.
Yeah. And so even if some of them had, second guesses, it probably would have been too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should start a new channel called Miracle Buster, where we take the miracles in the Bible and figure out whether they really could have occurred.
I mean, when we're talking about miracles, it doesn't matter if they're plausible. A miracle is by definition something that God is doing that's supernatural. So if God can do supernatural things, then he can just do it. We don't need to theorize how he did it.
I disagree. It makes me have more faith to see God use the laws that he created.
Not me. It sounds to me like the more natural it becomes, the more it can just be a coincidence and not God.
Well, I don't want it to be just magic, snap your fingers.
Well,
that takes a lot of faith.
A lot of faith. If you believe in God, that's what God would do.
Yeah, but I think he would use the laws around him.
Why?
Because I think he would.
All right. Let's finish chapter 30 and 31.
All right. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the Egyptians.
Yeah, where you were.
No, we already read this, but I figured I'll just read it anyhow.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we did read 30. Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right. Israel saw the great work that the Lord did against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. But this miraculous feat, for some reason, was not deserving of a holiday or even a feast. Is that right? Because they had that feast of unleavened bread, just to get out of Egypt. But this was, this was a big one, right?
It's a good point. This is like one of the most memorable parts of the Exodus.
The Feast of the Flood.
They literally celebrate a holiday just because like the oil didn't run out in their lamps. That's a big deal. But
wait, do they?
Yeah.
In the Bible?
No. Did Hanukkah? Do you know what Hanukkah is?
Well, yeah, but that's not in the Bible. I was talking about Feast of Unleavened Bread,
That's what I'm
so I would have thought God would have made them have a holiday or a feast or something.
Well, I don't know if God cares or not, but I'm just saying that the Jewish people are pretty keen on observing, his historical miracles.
Yeah, but ignoring Hanukkah, I bet they observe every holiday in the Bible,
Probably, yeah.
right? So Hanukkah is just an outlier.
Yeah, but whether or not God commanded them, you think they would have something, a big event
That's what I'm saying.
to celebrate
Right,
the sea crossing.
right,
Like, you would think that it would be like every year you would celebrate it.
right. That's what I'm saying, but God didn't care about that.
That's why I'm saying nobody cares about it.
Well, that's weird.
I know it's weird. I agree.
Then all right, we agree.
We're in violent agreement right now.
Festival of the Crossing of the Sea.
What would you call it?
I just
mean,
told you.
The Feast of Unleavened Bread,
It's pretty
obviously.
great, yeah. Can't beat that one.
I mean, that's definitely a festival on the rising. But I don't know about the... Good there.
Yeah, I always
Pretty
see
good.
it. I always see it. It's so great.
I'm so glad that my puns are never wasted on you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but the sea crossing,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta have a good name. Like, you can't just say the day we crossed the Red Sea. There's got to be a catchy way to say it. Happened in the night, though. So it's got to have like a nighttime,
Okay.
you know. Or no.
I don't think many people know it happened at night, though, right? You know, people. They probably thought it happened in the daytime.
And then they had a vision from God in the night. Could call it a wet dream.
We're not talking. We're done here.
I'm just saying.
We're done. We're not. No.
It could be the festival of the wet dream.
I think that's it for us.
Yeah, we're
And
definitely.
I'm usually not the one to end this. So.
We're definitely getting banned.
Yeah.
They're gonna remove us.
Yeah.
I think we've done all we can do with this chapter.
I think we beat it into the ground.
The horse is sufficiently dead.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we can accomplish that.
Yeah.
Turned it into glue.
So how many chapters are in this Exodus thing?
Like 30. Is it 32 chapters?
Man, we're
How
never
many-
gonna finish.
We'll just chat. We'll ask Google.
You know, I wanted it to end by the end of this year. You know what I mean?
Such wishful thinking. 40 chapters. So I thought it was 39, but
Oh,
40
my.
chapters. We're not even halfway
I know,
there.
I know. Maybe we need to take less notes and speed this up or something. I don't know.
Listen, if you want to cut corners,
I know. Whatever. All right, I'm done.
all right, guys. Listen, had a good time. Enjoyed the comments. Thank you for all the comments, guys.
Yes, all two of you people.
And you know the thing. We'll be back next Monday.
Yes, same time as always.
We've got Exodus 15. We're about to get into the wandering. It's really exciting.
Maybe we can do 15 and 16.
But in just a couple more chapters, we get into the laws. We're about to get the 10 Commandments.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Moses is going to go up on the mountain. God's going to scare everybody.
I'm surprised they don't have a feast for the 10 Commandments.
They're about to make the golden calf.
Oh yeah.
You're right. They should have a feast for that.
Yeah, they need more feasts.
They need. We should make our own feasts.
Okay, let's start it up.
I'll celebrate some feasts.
Yeah, I don't need a reason.
No, I just want to eat.
All right.
All right, guys. Chet says he loves Exodus 15. Exodus 15 is going to be dope.
Nice.
All right, guys. We're going to see you in 1 week. I hope you have a great night.